Have you ever felt like something's off with someone close to you, but you just can't pinpoint why? Maybe they flash friendly smiles but leave you with that subtle feeling of unease or confusion. In today's must-watch video, we're unpacking the hidden signs someone secretly dislikes you. Signs cleverly disguised by fake kindness, passive-aggressive jokes, or subtle exclusions. If you value genuine connections and want to avoid emotional drain from toxic relationships, this video is exactly what you've been searching for. Make sure to watch until the end for powerful tips that'll protect your peace of mind. And don't forget to subscribe. Join our thriving community for more relatable insights and strategies to handle everyday social puzzles with confidence. We live in a world where subtlety often overshadows direct truth-telling. Many of us claim to value honesty, yet when it comes down to expressing how we really feel about someone, especially when those feelings are negative, we routinely shrink behind polite facades. The phrase "fake it till you make it" has become so pervasive that people often interpret it as a license to mask genuine discontent behind hollow smiles, half-hearted compliments, and superficial interactions. This duality is particularly evident in friendships, workplaces, and extended social circles, where the stakes of open confrontation feel too high. Rather than risk a messy blow-up, we might pretend to get along with an individual we secretly find frustrating, irritating, or outright unlikable. The real trouble arises when you happen to be on the receiving end of that concealed negative energy. If you remain oblivious to the signs, you could spend months, or even years, investing your emotional energy in relationships that are, at best, one-sided, and at worst, quietly harmful. Yet most of us hesitate to scrutinize these interactions too closely. We want to believe the best in people, or we may simply be too scared to face the possibility that someone we consider a friend or ally may not reciprocate those warm feelings. Denial can feel safe, temporarily, but in the long run, ignorance about these covert dynamics only fosters confusion, hurt, and disappointment. Recognizing the truth grants us the power to protect ourselves. It also grants us the chance to foster healthy boundaries, invest in better relationships, and seek out individuals who genuinely appreciate us. This entire discussion becomes extra pertinent if you've ever felt that nagging sense that something is off with someone close to you, yet you couldn't put your finger on the cause. Maybe it was a fleeting grimace, a snide remark disguised as a joke, or some intangible sense that you were being subtly elbowed out of group plans. Over time, these little cues accumulate, shaping an unmistakable pattern of low regard or outright dislike. We'll explore 7 distinct signs that someone secretly harbors negative feelings toward you. Each sign is grounded in real-life experiences, both personal anecdotes and stories observed in others. By the time we've thoroughly examined each one, you'll be equipped to identify when these signals appear in your own life. The ability to spot these red flags doesn't mean you must always confront them head-on with aggression or drama. Sometimes the most constructive choice is to remove yourself gracefully from relationships that can't or won't grow in positive directions. Other times you might discover that a calm, honest conversation can mend the rift and clarify misunderstandings. The solution depends on your priorities and the specific dynamics of the relationship in question. The objective here is not to turn you into a cynic, but to help you become more aware. Ignorance might offer temporary solace, but knowledge grants you freedom to decide your next steps with eyes wide open. In Part 1, we'll cover 3 of the 7 signs. 1. They always joke about your flaws. 2. They give compliments that sting like insults. And 3. They subtly exclude you from plans. Each of these red flags can be small in isolation. A single offhand joke might not signify anything deeper than a friend's attempt at humor. A lone backhanded compliment might be the result of an awkward word choice. Missing one invitation might be a genuine oversight. However, if you consistently experience any of these behaviors over and over, you have good reason to suspect that the smile you see is masking a more negative undercurrent. Consider each sign carefully, place it in the context of your own relationships, and decide for yourself when it transitions from forgivable quirk to damaging pattern. Few social customs are as widespread or as confusing as teasing and joking around. Throughout most cultures, good-natured ribbing is a common way friends bond. When our closest companions poke fun at us, it can feel affirming, even heartwarming, if the jokes come from a place of warmth and acceptance. The issue arises when the jokes exhibit a more cutting tone and often target our vulnerabilities, our perceived flaws, insecurities, or personal hardship. Imagine a scenario in which a friend repeatedly points out your quirks in front of others, cloaking them in humor. Your slight stutter when excited, your awkward laugh, or the outfit choices you make that don't align with mainstream fashion. On the surface, such jests might seem harmless. After all, you might initially laugh, chalking it up to friendly banter. However, with repetition, these jokes can erode self-confidence and create an environment where you constantly anticipate critique disguised as humor. What makes this form of disguised negativity especially potent is how easily it can be brushed off. We live in a culture where taking offense at just a joke is often seen as lacking a sense of humor. The burden then falls on you to remain silent, to not be too sensitive, or to laugh along, even if you feel uneasy inside. This places you in a no-win situation. Speak up and you risk being labeled thin-skinned or confrontational. Stay quiet and you enable them to continue making you the punchline. In many cases, individuals who resort to such jokes understand precisely this dynamic. They know they can attack your self-esteem while maintaining plausible deniability. "Hey, don't take it so seriously," they might say, pointing the blame back at you for not being able to handle lighthearted fun. When you notice the jokes consistently target your vulnerabilities, like your body shape, your career progress, your personal ambitions, or your relationship status, it's a sign the underlying intention might not be so benign. Indeed, a pattern emerges wherein these jokes subtly communicate, "I see your weaknesses, and I'm not shy about exploiting them for my amusement or to elevate myself." Over time, the comedic veneer dissolves, and what remains is a form of manipulation designed to remind you of where they think you stand, a rung or two lower than them. They may be outwardly smiling, but the message behind the laughter is far from friendly. Here's a personal anecdote to illustrate how this can manifest. I once had a coworker who made it a habit to playfully point out any mistakes I made during team presentations. If I stumbled over a word or momentarily lost my train of thought, he would joke about it in front of the entire group. Initially, I laughed along, hoping to show I could take a joke, but as time passed, it became clear that this pattern was no accident. The jokes always revolved around highlighting my shortcomings, and never, not even once, did they spotlight my successes. I began to dread team gatherings, not because I doubted my competencies, but because I feared being reduced to a punchline. My coworkers' humor was a means to project superiority and to question my competence without ever openly criticizing me in a professional context. Recognizing this pattern allowed me to assert a boundary and eventually halt that dynamic. His reaction, irritation, and defensiveness spoke volumes about his real intentions. Why would someone so frequently weaponize humor against someone they claim to like, or even consider a friend? The underlying reason often ties back to insecurity or a craving for control. When individuals feel threatened by your capabilities or your potential, they might opt for subtle tactics to keep you in a place of self-doubt. By joking about your perceived flaws, they knock down your self-assurance, ensuring you remain unsure of your worth and hesitant to stand firm against any future transgressions. It's reminiscent of the old adage, "If I can make you doubt yourself, I can make you easier to manipulate." This dynamic can be incredibly insidious because it progresses so gradually. You might not notice the toll it's taking on your self-esteem until you realize you've started editing yourself, speaking less in meetings, abandoning personal style choices, or avoiding topics you worry they'll mock. Another reason humor becomes a tool of hidden dislike is that it keeps the aggressor safe from direct confrontation. If you were to challenge them, they'd quickly pivot back to saying, "It's just a joke," or "I didn't mean any harm. You're reading too much into it." This evasion is an extremely effective defense mechanism. They get to wear a mask of cheerfulness and camaraderie, while you're left feeling guilty or overly sensitive for sensing the barbs underneath. This confusion can keep you off balance, perpetuating the cycle of self-doubt. In the end, you become stuck between wanting to maintain harmony and acknowledging that something is off. How then should you respond when you notice yourself becoming the target of such playful attacks? One straightforward but powerful tactic is to calmly question the joke in real time. For instance, if someone makes a dig at your expense, respond with, "I'm curious, what makes that so funny to you?" Or, "Do you mind clarifying what you mean by that joke?" You're not meeting aggression with aggression, you're simply inviting them to explain themselves. This can often cause them to stumble or backtrack, revealing that their joke had less to do with humor and more to do with subtle disrespect. Another strategy is to address it privately, stating openly that while you can appreciate a good laugh, these repeated jabs are making you uncomfortable. People who genuinely respect you will often dial it back or apologize, especially if they were unintentionally hitting a sore spot. But those who persist are telling you they care more about preserving their own power than fostering a respectful connection. On a more introspective note, it's valuable to ask yourself, why do I keep tolerating these jokes? Sometimes, we remain silent because the relationship is important to us and we fear losing it. Other times, we may have grown up in environments where teasing was normalized. Our threshold for disrespect can become higher than it should be. Recognizing these personal patterns helps prevent you from making excuses for someone else's undermining behavior. This heightened self-awareness is also the first step towards setting healthier boundaries. After all, a friend or colleague who consistently undermines you through humor is not doing you any favors. True relationships involve laughter that brings people closer, not jokes that diminish one person for the other's entertainment or self-aggrandizement. Now let's pivot to the second sign, compliments that hurt more than they heal. On the surface, compliments are meant to uplift and celebrate one another. Genuine praise leaves you feeling supported, valued, and occasionally even glowing with pride. However, a backhanded compliment does the exact opposite. Instead of feeling warm and validated, you walk away with a lingering sense of confusion, wondering if there was an insult hidden somewhere in that sugar-coated statement. Classic examples include statements like, "You look really great today," almost unrecognizable, or "Wow, you're smarter than I thought you were." These phrases are typically said with a smile, sometimes even accompanied by a friendly tone, but the second half of the remark nullifies the positive words that came before it. Backhanded compliments can be especially jarring because of the mental gymnastics they inflict. In the moment, you might feel compelled to show gratitude for the praise, yet you also sense the venom that lurks beneath. By the time you process your own response, the other person has moved on, often oblivious, or pretending to be oblivious, to the damage they've inflicted. The net result is an internal whisper of doubt. What did they really mean by that? Or do they actually believe, "I'm usually unattractive, less capable, or less talented"? Over time, consistent exposure to such remarks can shape your self-perception, amplifying your insecurities while fueling the other person's sense of superiority. Why do people resort to backhanded compliments? Often it's a stealthy way of expressing jealousy, envy, or general resentment. If they see you thriving, perhaps you're receiving praise at work, excelling in a new fitness regime, or celebrating personal milestones, it triggers something uncomfortable within them. Rather than confronting their own feelings, they lash out under the guise of praise. This keeps them from appearing overtly negative or envious, and it allows them to rationalize their behavior as mere awkwardness or cluelessness. In some social circles, backhanded compliments also function as a means of competitive banter, one-upping each other's achievements in a way that's draped in politeness. Although this might sound downright toxic, it's a dynamic that exists in certain friend groups or professions where competition is the norm. Identifying these patterns early can help you step out of the game before it chips away at your self-esteem. It's important not to trivialize the emotional impact of a backhanded compliment. Even if the words sound vaguely supportive at first, that subtle negativity can cut deep. People on the receiving end might start second-guessing their appearance, skills, or intelligence. It can also create tension between you and the individual offering the compliment, as you may want to keep your guard up to avoid further stings. While a single backhanded remark may not be relationship-defining, repeated occurrences usually indicate that the person harbors deeper reservations or animosity toward you. A genuine friend or colleague who truly values you will offer support without embedding sly insults. Hence, these remarks serve as a signal that all is not well beneath the veneer of cordiality. Dealing with backhanded compliments can be tricky because, much like weaponized humor, they leave you uncertain about how to respond without looking defensive or confrontational. Sometimes, the most effective tactic is to politely request clarification. "Thanks for the compliment, but what exactly did you mean by almost unrecognizable?" Or, "I appreciate that you think I'm smarter than I look. Could you elaborate on what made you think otherwise?" By calmly and directly questioning the ambiguous part of the remark, you effectively hold up a mirror to their behavior. The individual might backpedal, offering a more genuine apology, or might become flustered because their hidden intention has been exposed. Either way, you gain valuable information. If they show genuine remorse, maybe there's hope for a healthier, more respectful relationship. If they get defensive or lash out, that's a major red flag that their compliment was never meant to lift you up. An alternative approach is the strategic pivot, accepting only the positive kernel of the compliment while disregarding the sting. For example, you might reply with, "I'm glad you think I look great," ignoring the insinuation that you usually don't. This approach can starve them of the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. However, it also leaves room for them to keep trying the same tactic if they aren't confronted about it. Ultimately, you'll want to consider how much energy you're willing to invest in someone who repeatedly communicates negativity. While small misunderstandings do happen, a pattern of backhanded compliments often points to deeper issues like jealousy, competitiveness, or genuine dislike. Trusting your instincts plays a significant role here. Many of us are conditioned to give others the benefit of the doubt or to assume that we're overreacting, yet deep down you can often sense when something is off. If you consistently walk away from interactions with a particular person feeling uneasy or vaguely insulted, pay attention. Your mind might be picking up on subtle cues that your conscious self has tried to brush aside. Overcoming self-doubt can be challenging, especially if the person dishing out these comments is someone you admire, respect, or need to maintain a working relationship with. Still, it's important to honor those feelings instead of dismissing them as paranoia. Finally, know that you are entitled to respect without disclaimers or subtext. Genuine relationships don't require you to decode cryptic, insulting remarks masquerading as praise. While it's understandable to attempt reconciliation if you believe this person is truly important to you and might be unaware of the harm they're causing, don't forget you always have the option to create distance. Sometimes, limiting your contact or even ending the relationship can be the healthiest choice if the negativity persists. Never let the fear of seeming oversensitive silence you into accepting that kind of treatment. A clear sense of self-worth can guide you to healthier, more transparent connections. The third sign of hidden negativity is perhaps the most passive-aggressive of all: exclusion from social gatherings or communal activities. At first glance, exclusion might appear as a simple oversight. People get busy, plans come together spontaneously, and invitations can slip the mind. But it's important to differentiate between genuine mistakes and repeated patterns. If you notice you've been left out of multiple group dinners, outings, or get-togethers, particularly ones that align with your interests or that involve mutual friends, it's worth examining the possibility that this isn't accidental at all. Being excluded repeatedly is painful because it strikes at our innate desire to belong. Psychologists note that social inclusion is a foundational human need, tied to our sense of self-worth and well-being. When you find yourself consistently excluded, it can trigger feelings of loneliness, self-doubt, and confusion. You might ask yourself whether you did something to offend the group or whether you simply aren't fun to be around. And if those so-called friends are confronted, they might claim, "We assumed you were busy," or "It was last minute and we didn't think you'd want to come." These excuses might hold weight once, even twice, but when a pattern emerges, such justifications unravel quickly. It becomes obvious that your exclusion is no coincidence. What makes this sign especially corrosive is that it often unfolds quietly. You might discover you were left out only after the fact, when you stumble upon social media posts or hear about the event in casual conversation. By then, the damage is done and your feelings are bruised. Confronting the group can be intimidating as you may worry about appearing needy or oversensitive. This internal conflict mirrors the same pattern we see with the other subtle signs. You're placed in a defensive position, forced to rationalize or doubt your own experience. The disclaimers you're fed, like, "We didn't even plan to do anything until the last moment," grow less and less believable with each instance. Exclusion can also coincide with the other signals of hidden dislike. For instance, the same person who peppers you with backhanded compliments could be the primary organizer of group outings. Or maybe the coworker who playfully mocks your flaws in team meetings is the one who somehow always forgets to add you to the dinner invite. Recognizing these overlapping behaviors can help you understand the broader social dynamics at play. Sometimes one person might harbor unresolved grievances against you and intentionally work to ensure you're not around, or it might be a reflection of groupthink, where others go along with the exclusion to avoid conflict or because they're under someone else's influence. Regardless, the bottom line is that you're being marginalized rather than included. So what do you do when you find yourself routinely left out by people who claim to care about you? One approach is to address the issue head-on, yes, even if it feels uncomfortable. A well-timed, calm question can work wonders. "Hey, I saw the pictures from this weekend. I would have loved to be there. Was there a reason I wasn't invited?" This kind of direct inquiry forces the individuals in question to clarify or come clean about their intent. If it truly was an oversight, they may feel embarrassed and try to make amends by ensuring you're included next time. If their reaction is defensive, evasive, or dismissive, that's a strong indicator that the exclusion was deliberate. Their discomfort in providing a valid explanation points to something deeper than an innocent slip of the mind. Another possibility is that they offer a bunch of reasons or excuses, none of which really add up, but they hope you won't push the subject. If they repeatedly do this, it might be time to question what you're getting out of these relationships in the first place. Are these people truly your friends if they only include you as an afterthought? Do they respect your presence, or do they view you as dispensable? Real friends or colleagues who genuinely value you make an effort to ensure you feel included, even if the plans are spontaneous or fluid. While confronting the issue can be a pathway to resolution, sometimes it's clear that the group dynamic is not going to change. In such cases, safeguarding your own sense of belonging might require forging new connections or focusing on other people who treat you with genuine warmth. A hidden blessing of realizing someone doesn't value your company is that you can redirect your time and energy toward individuals who do. Yes, it can be painful to acknowledge the rejection, but in the grand scheme, knowing where you stand is preferable to being strung along with false promises of inclusion. At the end of the day, your self-worth should never hinge on whether certain individuals remember to invite you. Recognize that relationships thrive on mutual respect and consideration. If that basic element is missing, it's not a healthy space for you to continue investing your emotional capital. Social circles evolve, and sometimes people grow apart or interests shift. If, however, the exclusion is purposeful and persistent, it's a glaring sign of hidden negativity that you should take seriously. You're not required to beg for a seat at a table where your presence is undervalued. By pulling back from those who exclude you, you pave the way to discover more authentic camaraderie where your participation is truly appreciated. Welcome to part 2 of our in-depth exploration of the subtle signs that someone secretly dislikes you but hides it under layers of politeness or feigned friendship. In the previous section, we delved into 3 specific red flags: targeted teasing disguised as humor, backhanded compliments that leave you questioning your worth, and patterns of social exclusion that isolate you from group events. Each of these signs can appear under the guise of normal interactions, which is precisely what makes them so insidious. Instead of openly confronting you or acknowledging their discontent, individuals who deploy such behaviors operate in the shadows of civility. You're left in a perpetual state of guessing, uncertain about whether your instincts are overreacting or whether their actions stem from genuine malice. This second segment will continue to shed light on these veiled maneuvers, specifically focusing on signs that revolve around time, boundaries, and physical presence. Before diving into the next 3 signs: 4, they're busy only when it comes to you; 5, they avoid physical contact like the plague, and 6, they disappear when you need support. It's important to note the pattern that unites all of these behaviors. Inconsistency. When people harbor concealed ill will, they rarely maintain their subterfuge in every scenario. You might catch glimpses of genuine warmth. Perhaps they're friendly in front of others, quick to invite you out when it benefits them, or lavish in praise when they have an audience. But as soon as circumstances shift, their disinterest or hidden negativity reemerges, leaving you feeling baffled and possibly responsible for a dynamic you don't fully comprehend. For instance, they might claim to be overwhelmed with obligations when you propose spending time together, yet somehow they find the bandwidth to socialize with others. Or they might avoid any form of even platonic friendly physical contact around you, despite being perfectly affectionate with everyone else in their orbit. By understanding these upcoming 3 signs, you'll refine your ability to see through the smokescreen. You'll gain clarity on whether your connections are built on authenticity or convenience, on mutual regard or hidden hostility. At times, we're quick to rationalize their behavior. Maybe they really are busy. Perhaps they just have a certain personal space preference, or maybe they're dealing with their own problems, which is why they can't offer me support. While it's healthy to practice empathy and consider external factors, it's equally important not to gaslight yourself. Repeated inconsistencies, especially when they show up across multiple dimensions of the relationship, are rarely coincidences. They're indicators that something fundamental is amiss. Another psychological aspect to keep in mind is the concept of intermittent reinforcement. When someone occasionally acts supportive or kind, you might cling to those moments, explaining away the negative experiences. You hold out hope that the good times are genuine and that the bad times are simply exceptions. Unfortunately, those rare positive encounters can keep you invested in an otherwise lopsided relationship, hoping for a type of consistency that never arrives. In this part of the article, we'll parse each sign carefully, offering personal anecdotes and broader commentary on why these behaviors occur, how they impact you, and how best to respond or recalibrate your boundaries. The goal is not to vilify people who behave this way, but to ensure that you protect your emotional well-being by recognizing the signs early and acting decisively. Have you ever had a friend, coworker, or potential romantic partner who never seems to have time for you yet appears to be constantly available for others? This phenomenon often emerges when someone doesn't hold you in high regard but lacks the inclination or courage to admit it outright. Instead, they rely on the universal excuse of being too busy. Modern life indeed keeps many of us juggling work responsibilities, personal passions, and social commitments. However, if the person in question perpetually tells you they're swamped, only for you to discover they're meeting up with mutual acquaintances, posting pictures from social gatherings, or simply hanging out and binge-watching shows with other friends, then you're facing a glaring sign that they're not too busy in general, they're too busy for you. To be clear, this does not negate the reality that people genuinely have hectic schedules and varying levels of social stamina. Some individuals are introverted and need alone time to recharge, making them selective about how often and with whom they spend their limited free hours. Nevertheless, consistency remains the key factor. An introvert who values your relationship will likely communicate their boundaries. They might say something like, "I can only handle 1 outing a week, but I'd love for it to be with you." On the other hand, a person who consistently claims busyness, yet appears to have no trouble finding time for everyone else, is sending a non-verbal message, "I don't consider you a priority." This dynamic often triggers a complicated mix of self-doubt and frustration. You might wonder what you did wrong, or whether you should be more interesting, accommodating, or persuasive to catch their attention. Gradually, you internalize the idea that you must work harder to be worthy of their time. It's a disheartening space to occupy because you're essentially chasing validation from someone who is unwilling or incapable of offering it. Moreover, if they realize you value the relationship strongly, they might continue to breadcrumb you, giving you just enough attention or partial promises, "Let's definitely plan something soon," to keep you invested without ever truly following through. This form of emotional stringing along can persist for weeks, months, or even years if left unaddressed. From the angle of personal boundaries and emotional health, it's vital to confront the reality of the situation instead of filling the void with hopeful speculations. Sure, you can gently call them out, asking directly if there's a reason they never seem to have time for you. If they dodge the question or offer the same tired excuses, consider it a clear signal that the relationship is fundamentally imbalanced. Healthy connections thrive on reciprocity. It doesn't have to be a perfect 50/50 split at all times. Life is often too fluid for that, however. It does need to feel fair and mutually respectful. When you acknowledge that the other person is not making room in their schedule for you, it liberates you from the cycle of waiting. Rather than continuing to allocate your time and energy towards someone who doesn't reciprocate, you can invest in relationships that bring genuine positivity, trust, and meaningful connection. Part of the reason busyness is such a convenient cover for hidden dislike or disinterest is because it's socially acceptable. We live in a culture where jam-packed calendars are the norm. Consequently, it's easy to say, work has been brutal, or I'm absolutely swamped this week, and most people will nod in sympathy without probing. Moreover, modern communication has made it both easier and harder to call someone out. On one hand, if they're posting real-time photos on social media at events or dinners you never heard about, the evidence is right there for you to see. On the other hand, technology allows them to ghost you or deliver non-answers with minimal effort, leaving you to question whether they just forgot to respond or truly don't want to see you. This dynamic can erode your self-esteem if you keep trying to decode their behavior rather than taking it at face value. Indeed, people tend to show up for the things and people that matter to them. If someone is too busy for you all the time, it likely means something else is taking priority. It could be their career, their other friends, or simply the desire to avoid spending time with you. While that realization can sting, it also offers clarity. Instead of blaming yourself, consider that sometimes the root cause doesn't lie in anything you did wrong. It may simply be a mismatch in how much each party values the connection. One of the most liberating things you can do is accept their busyness as truth and recalibrate accordingly by limiting your investment in a one-sided relationship. There's also the potential that this person is employing a passive strategy to fade you out of their life. Confronting someone directly to say, "I no longer enjoy your company," or "I feel we've drifted apart," requires a level of courage many people lack. It's far easier to let busyness stand as a perpetual excuse, hoping that the relationship will dissolve of its own accord. If you're catching on to this passive drift, you can either address it and attempt to salvage the bond, if it's worth saving, or let it dissolve with grace. In some cases, a candid conversation can reveal misunderstandings or highlight ways to strengthen the relationship. Yet, if their avoidance is truly rooted in secret dislike, they may become defensive, deflect, or continue to feed you excuses. Ultimately, the important takeaway is to recognize that your time is valuable, and you deserve to spend it with people who genuinely want to share theirs with you. Continuously chasing someone's availability is emotionally exhausting and unsustainable. Rather than dwelling on why they can't or won't fit you into their schedule, focus on forging friendships or partnerships that are eager to include you. This might mean stepping out of your comfort zone, pursuing new interests, or reconnecting with acquaintances who appreciate your presence. Life is too short to pour energy into illusions. If they're always too busy, let them be busy, and reclaim your own emotional energy in the process. Physical contact is a fundamental aspect of human connection. We're not just talking about intimate or romantic contexts, but also the everyday gestures that convey warmth, friendly hugs, high fives, pats on the back, or even comfortable proximity when seated next to each other. When someone consistently avoids physical contact with you, yet seems at ease being tactile with others, it signals a deliberate barrier they're placing between you and them. This barrier can manifest in small ways, such as backing up when you lean in to speak or turning their body away as you approach. It might also be more overt, like refusing a handshake or sidestepping a friendly hug. In the realm of hidden dislike, avoidance of touch is a powerful nonverbal cue that speaks volumes, often louder than words. Of course, personal boundaries and cultural norms vary greatly. Some people are naturally less inclined to physical touch due to their upbringing, cultural background, or past experiences. Consent and comfort are paramount, so we must avoid hastily assuming negative intent if someone simply prefers more personal space. The key indicator here is consistency. Do they avoid physical contact with everyone or just with you? If they're comfortable hugging or touching other friends but flinch when you draw near, it's a strong sign they hold some unique reservation or aversion about you. Even more telling is their overall body language. Do they cross their arms, angle away, or clench their fists in your presence? Body language experts agree that these are defensive postures often associated with emotional distance or discomfort. Why does this happen? If someone secretly dislikes you, they might harbor subconscious or conscious discomfort at the thought of closeness or camaraderie. Physical touch inherently involves a momentary sense of intimacy, and they may feel disingenuous offering that if they harbor resentment or disinterest. In more overt cases, they simply don't want you to mistake cordial conduct for actual fondness. By maintaining a physical distance, they reinforce the emotional distance that underlies the relationship. Ironically, if you ask them about it, they might feign surprise or claim you're being paranoid, further gaslighting you into thinking you're reading too much into the situation. This sign can be particularly confusing in a work context, where formal distance is the norm. Yet even in professional settings, friendly handshakes, pats on the shoulder, or team-building exercises can involve minor forms of physical contact. If someone consistently recoils from these gestures, specifically when interacting with you, it highlights a personal disconnect rather than a blanket avoidance. Socially, the avoidance becomes even more telling if they're perfectly at ease wrapping their arms around others, but can't seem to stand next to you for more than a few seconds. Such unspoken cues chip away at the illusion of harmony, revealing a mismatch between their outward politeness and their internal feelings. When addressing the avoidance of physical contact, it's critical to tread carefully. Consent and personal comfort with touch must be respected at all times. The goal isn't to push unwanted physical gestures onto someone, but rather to notice patterns that differentiate you from the rest of their social sphere. If you observe you're the sole recipient of this physical distance, reflect on the broader context. Do they combine this behavior with other red flags, like harsh jokes at your expense, frequent busyness, or backhanded compliments? The accumulation of these clues can clarify whether their avoidance is a simple matter of personal boundaries or a reflection of deeper negative feelings. One potential response is to engage them gently in conversation about their comfort levels, especially if this person is someone you frequently interact with, like a close friend, colleague, or family member. A statement like, "I've noticed you seem uncomfortable whenever I try to give a friendly hug or pat on the back. If that's just a personal boundary, I totally respect it, but I wanted to check in to make sure there's nothing else going on between us," can open the door for honest discourse. Sometimes you'll discover it truly has nothing to do with you, and you can mutually decide on appropriate boundaries moving forward. However, if they bristle at the question or evade it altogether, you may have stumbled upon an underlying tension. In certain cultural or social contexts, avoiding physical contact with someone can be a way of signaling disapproval or disrespect, akin to refusing a handshake in Western business culture. While not everyone subscribes to these norms, they still influence how we interpret such interactions. If they have no qualms about shaking hands or hugging others but recoil or hesitate when you extend the same gesture, it hints at more than just chance. Their consistent avoidance could be an unspoken statement of, "I don't trust you," or "I don't like you enough to be comfortable with even minimal touch." Ultimately, physical distance is a nuanced sign. Consider it in conjunction with the rest of your interactions. If you spot a recurring pattern of negative or neutral body language, standoffish behavior, and an unwillingness to engage you physically or emotionally, it may be time to accept that the relationship isn't as friendly as you hoped. While confrontation might bring clarity, sometimes simply taking note of these behaviors is enough to guide your decisions. If you feel unwelcome or uneasy, give yourself permission to step back. At the end of the day, you deserve connections that are built on mutual respect, trust, and an openness to be close, whether that closeness is emotional, physical, or both. The sixth sign that someone secretly dislikes you is one of the most revealing. They're nowhere to be found when you genuinely need help or emotional support. You may have people in your life who are quick to celebrate your successes, share in your triumphs, and partake in the fun moments, but when hardship strikes, be it a family emergency, a job loss, or a health crisis, they become uncharacteristically distant. Their abrupt absence or minimal acknowledgement can leave you feeling confused and let down. In many cases, these individuals might still maintain a facade of concern via quick, surface-level texts, hang in there, without offering any meaningful help, empathy, or presence. Why is this a strong indicator of hidden dislike? People who care about you often, though not always, show up during tough times. They might not always have the perfect words, and they may be dealing with their own challenges, but they typically extend genuine gestures of support, whether practical or emotional. By contrast, a person who secretly dislikes you may see your hardships as inconvenient or simply not worth their investment of time. They might also relish the opportunity to keep their distance, as crisis situations strip away the superficial layers of a relationship and demand sincerity. If they don't genuinely care for you, stepping up in your moment of need feels onerous. Sometimes friends who vanish during your toughest moments may also use your vulnerability to further their own agendas, spreading gossip, for instance, about how dramatic you are or how out of control your life has become. In such scenarios, their absence isn't merely indifference, it's active betrayal. They weaponize your struggles by broadcasting them to others, relishing in the spectacle of your downfall rather than offering a supportive hand. While this may feel startlingly cruel, it does happen, and it's an unmistakable sign of someone harboring negative feelings behind a veneer of civility. The emotional toll of this behavior can be immense. Difficult life events are already isolating, and the lack of support from someone you considered a friend can deepen your sense of loneliness and despair. You might begin to question whether you misjudged the relationship, or if there's something defective about you that pushes people away. Over time, repeated instances of emotional abandonment can strain your overall mental health, making it harder to trust future connections or to confide in others again. Recognizing this pattern is a key step toward finding healthier social networks that won't bail on you when the going gets tough. When you observe that someone consistently disappears or trivializes your struggles in moments of crisis, it's crucial to protect your emotional well-being. First, try not to internalize their lack of support as a reflection of your worth. More often than not, it speaks volumes about their priorities, empathy levels, and capacity for real friendship. While it's natural to feel hurt, remember that not everyone has the emotional bandwidth or willingness to walk with you through life's storms. Some individuals are simply not equipped or willing to handle the gravity of serious challenges. They may choose shallow positivity and fun rather than the depth required to offer true understanding or care. In some instances, confronting the issue can offer clarity. You might openly tell them, "I felt really alone when I was going through this. I wish you had been there for me more." Their response can unveil whether this was a misunderstanding or a sign of genuine indifference, or even dislike. If they show remorse, ask how they can be more present in the future. If they deflect, dismiss, or become defensive, you have your answer. They're not emotionally invested in you. This knowledge, while painful, can free you from unrealistic expectations. You can reevaluate how much emotional energy you want to dedicate to that connection going forward. An important aspect of self-care is discerning between fair-weather acquaintances and true confidants. Understanding that some people are only around for the good times can help you avoid disappointment. This doesn't mean you must sever all ties with them, especially if these relationships offer something else of value in your life. Maybe they're great coworkers, entertaining party companions, or share a hobby you love. However, it does mean you should categorize them accordingly and refrain from leaning on them for emotional sustenance. Save that vulnerable space for those who have proven themselves capable of empathy and support. Finally, don't let the poor support of a few keep you from seeking genuine connections with others. Your challenges, struggles, and growth are valuable parts of your journey. When you find people who meet your vulnerability with understanding, instead of avoidance or exploitation, those are the individuals you want by your side. The concept of chosen family is powerful. Friends who step up in difficult times can become as important, if not more so, than blood relatives. Trusting new connections after experiencing emotional abandonment may feel risky, but the reward of finding true camaraderie, empathy, and support is well worth it. You deserve to be surrounded by people who don't run away at the first sign of trouble, but rather walk toward you, hands extended, ready to help. You've journeyed through the intricacies of 6 distinct signs indicating that someone may secretly dislike you, while feigning friendship or neutrality. From being subjected to veiled insults masked as humor or compliments, to discovering that you're perpetually forgotten from social gatherings, these subtle cues form a tapestry of hidden negativity that can be challenging to unravel. In Part 2, we explored how individuals leverage busyness, physical distance, and emotional absence as tools to keep you at arm's length without openly addressing the underlying issues. These tactics often share a common thread. They enable the person to maintain social politeness or face-saving gestures while communicating an undercurrent of disdain, discomfort, or disinterest. Now, in Part 3, we turn to the final sign, 7. They gossip about you behind your back. Gossip, especially when it involves someone you consider a friend or trusted colleague, can carry a profound sense of betrayal. It takes negativity out of the realm of private, unspoken tension and amplifies it in public or semi-public forums. Rather than expressing their grievances directly to you, the gossip chooses to voice them to others, potentially distorting the narrative to sway opinion against you or to extract sympathy for themselves. Often it's a form of covert aggression, a way to assert dominance, damage reputations, or simply relish in someone else's vulnerability without facing the consequences of an upfront confrontation. The significance of this final sign lies not only in the act itself, but also in the underlying motivation. Gossip can serve as a release valve for unresolved tensions, jealousies, or insecurities. Those who engage in it might feel temporarily empowered by rallying others to see you in a negative light. Conversely, if you discover you've become the subject of their rumors, you may experience shock, anger, or heartbreak, emotions compounded by the realization that someone you trusted was the primary source of the damaging talk. Understanding why people gossip and how to respond effectively is pivotal for preserving your peace of mind and social standing. It also helps you recognize when your existing relationships have reached a point where open dialogue is no longer possible or advisable. In addition to covering sign 7 in detail, this final section will integrate all the signs and offer strategies for dealing with such relationships holistically. After all, the ultimate goal is to move forward with clarity, self-respect, and emotional well-being. You'll find that most tactics recommended, setting boundaries, having candid conversations, or in some instances walking away, remain applicable across multiple signs. Yet each relationship demands a case-by-case assessment. Sometimes you might salvage a friendship by exposing these issues to the light of honest communication. Other times you may realize the negativity runs too deep, and the best step is a respectful disengagement. Either way, knowledge of these warning signals ensures you're not stepping blindly into emotionally hazardous territory. Gossip is often trivialized in everyday life, frequently dismissed as harmless chatter or idle curiosity. In some contexts, sharing information can indeed be benign. Humans are social creatures, and passing on stories or updates is a natural part of bonding. However, the moment gossip turns malicious, when it's used to ridicule, belittle, or undermine someone's reputation, it becomes a corrosive force capable of fracturing trust and security. If you discover that a person you believe to be on friendly terms is the source of such conversations, the realization can feel like a knife in the back. One of the most pernicious aspects of gossip lies in its stealth. Often you remain unaware that you've been a topic of negative discussions until someone either slips up, feels a pang of conscience, or decides to warn you. By this point, the rumor mill may have spun your personal information into exaggerated or downright false narratives. The hidden enemy who started or perpetuated the gossip can watch from a distance, smug in their anonymity, or emboldened by others who share their disdain. In some social circles, like tight-knit workplaces or small-town neighborhoods, gossip can spread rapidly and morph into a social stigma that proves difficult to shake off, even when the allegations are untrue or grossly distorted. What drives this behavior? Often it's born of resentment, jealousy, or a desire to control the social narrative. The gossiper might feel threatened by your successes, envious of your relationships, or simply bored with their own life. By painting you in a negative light, they feed their ego, garner attention, or form alliances rooted in mutual contempt. In extreme cases, gossip can escalate into bullying, where the rumor monger incites others to ostracize or tease the target. On a more subconscious level, some people gossip as a misguided way to bond with others. We share the same dislike or suspicion of this person, so we must be aligned. Regardless of the underlying motive, gossip remains a powerful tool for covert aggression precisely because it avoids direct confrontation and leaves the target in the dark, often unable to defend themselves. The emotional fallout for the person targeted by gossip can be severe, ranging from embarrassment and anger to anxiety and isolation. It can make previously welcoming spaces feel hostile or uncertain. Paranoia takes root as you wonder who else might be talking about you and what stories are being circulated. Trust is shattered, not just in the person who spread the rumors, but often in the wider social network that tolerated or entertained them. In professional settings, gossip can tarnish one's reputation and impede career progress. In personal spheres, it can break friendships, disrupt family dynamics, and sow seeds of long-term animosity. Once you uncover that someone is gossiping about you, you face the challenge of deciding how to address it. Some individuals prefer to take the high road, ignoring the chatter in hopes it will die out on its own. Others believe in confronting the gossiper directly, demanding an explanation or an apology. Which route is best often depends on the context, the severity of the gossip, and your personal relationship to the offending party. If the rumors are relatively mild or confined to a small circle, a quiet approach might suffice. You can correct misinformation if it arises in conversation, and otherwise continue living your life with dignity. Overreaction can sometimes fan the flames of gossip, providing the rumor mill fresh content. However, if the gossip has broader implications, like threatening your professional standing, undermining close relationships, or causing significant emotional distress, a direct response may be necessary. This can take the form of a calm, private conversation with the individual responsible. You might say, "I've heard you've been sharing some concerning stories about me. I'd like to understand why." Such an opening puts the onus on them to explain. They may deny everything, feign ignorance, or become hostile. Yet, even denial can be informative. It often indicates they're aware that their actions are harmful or unscrupulous, but lack the courage to own up to it. In other cases, the gossiper might admit their misstep, offering flimsy justifications or half-hearted apologies. Your willingness to reconcile after such a conversation will hinge on the sincerity you send. Keep in mind that trust is much harder to rebuild once shattered. Seeking external support is another avenue. If this situation unfolds at work, you might involve HR or a trusted mentor. In a social circle, confiding in mutual friends can help you clarify the narrative and dispel false rumors. Nevertheless, be cautious that you don't inadvertently sink to the same level by launching counter-gossip or staging your own smear campaign. Defending yourself is valid, but stooping to personal attacks or rumor-mongering seldom yields positive results. Instead, focus on presenting the truth calmly, leaning on credible allies who can speak to your character. Finally, it's worth conducting some self-reflection. If the gossip has roots in misunderstandings or miscommunications, clarifying those issues may prevent them from escalating. However, if you suspect the gossip stems from deeper jealousy or malice, your best course of action might be to limit your interactions with the individual altogether. Removing yourself from a toxic environment, be it a professional team, social clique, or even a close friendship, can sometimes be the healthiest option. Life is too short to constantly look over your shoulder, wondering who is whispering about you behind closed doors. By distancing yourself from chronic gossipers, you make a powerful statement about the kind of relationships and environments you find acceptable. Now that we've examined all 7 signs in detail, let's weave them together. These behaviors: 1. Joking about your flaws. 2. Backhanded compliments. 3. Subtle exclusion. 4. Selective busyness. 5. Physical avoidance. 6. Vanishing during tough times. And 7. Gossip. Often intersect in complex ways. For instance, the person who constantly insults you under the guise of humor might also be the one who excludes you from social events or gossips about you at the office. Alternatively, you might encounter different signs from multiple people in your life. Recognizing each sign equips you with a clearer lens through which to view your relationships, enabling you to identify patterns that might otherwise remain hidden. A key theme across these signs is the covert nature of the hostility. The individual or group in question rarely comes out and says, "I don't like you." Instead, they rely on subtle behaviors that sow doubt about your place in their circle. These interactions can leave you feeling off balance as you try to reconcile their polite words with their undermining actions. Society conditions us to maintain decorum, so many people find direct confrontation uncomfortable or frightening. Consequently, they learn to mask negative feelings in socially acceptable ways, through jokes, busyness, or superficial compliments, until those feelings fester into more destructive forms like gossip. Another common thread is the emotional toll these behaviors can exact on you. Repeated exposure to backhanded compliments or consistent exclusion can chip away at your self-esteem and leave you perpetually questioning your worth. The resulting self-doubt may prompt you to cling tighter to these toxic relationships, hoping to win back the approval you sense slipping away. This dynamic is especially prevalent when the person treating you poorly used to be closer, like a dear friend or supportive colleague, who suddenly shifts their demeanor. It's natural to want to fix what feels broken, but without honesty from the other party, you're left guessing about the root cause of their coldness. Each sign also offers a potential avenue for resolution or, at the very least, awareness. Sometimes simply recognizing the pattern can alleviate stress by affirming that you're not imagining it. You can then decide whether to confront the issue, politely but firmly, or distance yourself. Both choices can be valid, depending on the circumstances. For instance, if this is a relationship you dearly value, you might attempt an honest dialogue, offering each other space to voice concerns or resentments. If the negativity originates from a casual acquaintance or a purely professional context, distancing might be the most straightforward solution. Regardless of your approach, knowledge is power, and awareness of these 7 signs gives you the upper hand in navigating social complexities. Addressing covert hostility requires both self-awareness and courage. Below are some strategies you can apply once you realize these signs are pointing to a hidden dislike. Direct communication. If the relationship is worth salvaging, consider sitting down with the person and expressing your concerns calmly. Cite specific instances, like being left out of an event or a backhanded compliment, and share how they made you feel. Avoid being accusatory, instead focus on describing what happened and why it bothers you. A genuine friend or colleague, even if initially defensive, may come to understand how their actions were hurtful. Boundary setting. Sometimes confrontation doesn't yield a positive outcome. In those scenarios, boundaries become your best friend. If a coworker continually jokes about your flaws, you might say, "I'm not comfortable discussing that topic anymore," whenever it arises. Should they continue, you have the right to involve a supervisor or HR if it's a professional environment. In personal relationships, you can limit the frequency of your interactions or redirect conversations when the tone becomes disrespectful. Tactical withdrawal. Recognize that not every relationship must be saved. If repeated attempts to address the issue fail, or you suspect the negativity is deeply ingrained, stepping back might be the most mentally and emotionally healthy decision. This could mean declining invitations, finding new social groups, or transferring departments if it's a work issue. The point isn't to punish the other person, but to protect yourself from ongoing harm. Seek support and validation. Talk to trusted friends, family, or a mental health professional about what you're experiencing. Sometimes an outside perspective can help you gauge whether you're overreacting or whether the situation is indeed toxic. Support systems can also offer encouragement and practical advice, reminding you that you're not isolated in dealing with these challenges. Document incidents. In professional or high-stakes environments, keeping a record of problematic interactions can be crucial. Document times, dates, witnesses, and the nature of each incident. Should formal mediation or HR involvement become necessary, having clear evidence lends credibility to your claims. Focus on self-care. Sustained exposure to covert hostility can drain your energy and confidence. Counterbalance this stress by investing in activities and relationships that rejuvenate you, whether it's a hobby, physical exercise, travel, or simply spending more time with people who genuinely support you. Focusing on your personal growth and well-being helps insulate you from the emotional strain these toxic dynamics can create. From a philosophical standpoint, the presence of hidden hostility can be seen as an invitation to practice discernment and self-reflection. Stoicism, for example, teaches that while we can't control others' actions, we can control our own responses. If someone secretly dislikes you, it's not your duty to convert their feelings into affection. Rather, it's your responsibility to maintain your sense of virtue, peace, and self-worth despite external negativity. Marcus Aurelius famously advised focusing on your own moral compass, suggesting that others' harmful behaviors reflect their character, not yours. Likewise, Buddhist philosophies emphasize compassion and detachment. Compassion can involve recognizing that those who spread negativity often suffer from their own insecurities and dissatisfaction. By responding with empathy rather than malice, you avoid adding fuel to the cycle of hostility. Detachment in this context means not clinging to relationships that bring ongoing suffering. You can let go without hatred, simply acknowledging that this connection no longer serves the growth and well-being of either party. The idea isn't to judge them harshly, but to free yourself from cycles of hurt. Existentialist thought might frame these interpersonal struggles as part of the freedom and responsibility we have in creating meaning in our relationships. We choose whom to allow into our inner circles, and we shape the quality of those connections through our actions and reactions. If someone perpetually reveals through subtle cues that they harbor negative feelings, it's your choice to confront, redefine, or exit the relationship. While these philosophical lenses differ in their nuances, they converge on a core principle. Your well-being and moral integrity remain within your domain, regardless of how others choose to behave. Lastly, contemporary psychology reminds us that relationships thrive on mutual respect, trust, and positive regard. When these elements are compromised, the relationship can become a breeding ground for anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Therefore, recognizing covert hostility is less about labeling others as irredeemable villains and more about protecting your own psychological health. Philosophical and psychological wisdom align on this point. You have the right, and perhaps the obligation, to preserve your internal equilibrium by setting clear limits and surrounding yourself with supportive influences. As we conclude this comprehensive exploration of the 7 signs that someone secretly dislikes you, joking about your flaws, backhanded compliments, subtle exclusion, selective busyness, physical avoidance, disappearance in times of need, and gossip, it's important to remember that not all relationships will display these signs in an obvious or malicious manner. Sometimes people are simply bad at communicating, dealing with their own emotional baggage, or caught up in circumstances that overshadow their capacity to be a good friend or colleague. Context matters, and no single sign should automatically be taken as irrefutable evidence of hatred or contempt. Yet awareness remains your best defense. By recognizing these behaviors early, you can safeguard your emotional and psychological well-being. You can choose to address the issues directly, fortify your boundaries, or remove yourself from environments that repeatedly cause distress. Moreover, spotting these behaviors in your own conduct can be an opportunity for growth. If you find yourself sliding into giving backhanded compliments or avoiding someone out of resentment, pause and ask what's driving your behavior. Self-honesty can redirect you onto a path of clearer, kinder communication and healthier connections. Finally, understand that life is too short to be spent tiptoeing around hidden hostility. Relationships should ideally serve as a source of encouragement, joy, and mutual respect. When you detect ongoing negativity that refuses to dissipate despite open dialogue or setting boundaries, it might be time to let go. This isn't a failure, but a step toward healthier social ecosystem. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your successes, empathize with your struggles, and offer genuine companionship. While it can feel painful to lose connections, clearing the way for more authentic relationships ultimately enriches your life. In your personal journey, you will inevitably encounter individuals who secretly dislike you. The question is not how to avoid them altogether, an impossible goal, but how to navigate these encounters without losing sight of your own worth. Armed with the insights provided here, you're better equipped to identify covert negativity and respond in ways that uphold your dignity and emotional health. Whether through direct communication, strategic distancing, or deeper self-reflection, you hold the power to shape your social landscape. Let this knowledge guide you to more genuine, fulfilling relationships where mutual regard and respect are the norm, not the exception. Mastering the art of recognizing hidden hostility in your relationships can truly transform your emotional well-being. It's all about gaining clarity, reclaiming your self-worth, and learning when it's time to walk away. Life is simply too precious to waste on fake friendships or toxic dynamics disguised as politeness. Speaking personally, once I began spotting these subtle signs, my relationships improved dramatically, allowing me to surround myself with people who genuinely value and uplift me. But enough about me, I want to hear your thoughts. Have you experienced hidden negativity from someone you trusted? Share your stories and tips in the comments below, and let's help each other navigate these tricky situations. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to subscribe for more eye-opening conversations.